It is a fundamental truth that humanity simply cannot endure an existence devoid of purpose. Because our reality is often daunting, and pain is an unavoidable part of the human condition, possessing a profound rationale for living is absolutely essential for our survival and flourishing. We are entirely willing to endure immense hardship and make significant sacrifices just to safeguard this core significance. As the famous adage suggests, an individual equipped with a strong reason for living is capable of weathering nearly any circumstance, while a person anchored by purpose can bravely tackle the inevitable storms of existence. Someone lacking that vital anchor is destined to spiral into absolute emptiness. The prominent psychologist Jung argued that true illumination requires us to explore the most obscure corners of our psyche, since discovering a glimmer in pitch blackness guarantees its authenticity. He observed that while Western theosophy tends to saturate our conscious awareness with pristine, idealized notions, it notably avoids grappling with our inner shadow and the obscure realms of our nature. According to his writings, genuine enlightenment is never achieved merely by visualizing radiant entities, but rather by dragging our hidden obscurities into the light of awareness. Because this introspective process is inherently uncomfortable, it remains remarkably unpopular among those seeking an easy path. Within the framework of Western theosophy, essentially the Western attempt to replicate Eastern spiritual customs, there exists an excessive fixation on exclusively positive imagery. Jung advises that if you truly wish to discover your life's purpose, you must willingly bring your hidden malevolence into your conscious mind, as this represents the authentic labor of individuation. Embracing and assimilating this shadow aspect of ourselves is precisely what grants an individual a completely unified character. Unlocking a truly deep significance in your existence demands navigating through those bleak internal landscapes before finally emerging into the radiance beyond. As the ancient proverb perfectly illustrates, a tree can never stretch its branches toward the divine unless its root system plunges deep into the inferno. Eastern and Western cultures hold fundamentally distinct perspectives regarding our ultimate purpose, a contrast that Jung eloquently analyzed. He noted that individuals from Western societies find a passive, pointless cosmos completely intolerable, forcing them to presume that the universe possesses an inherent design. In contrast, the Eastern mind does not force this external assumption. Instead, a figure like Buddha actively personifies the purpose, shedding external attachments to find fulfillment internally. Jung himself asserted that both philosophies hold validity, observing that the outwardly focused Westerner projects significance onto external phenomena, while the inwardly focused Easterner experiences that value within. Ultimately, he concluded that true significance resides simultaneously in our internal landscape and the external environment. Consequently, you might find yourself asking what the definitive purpose of our existence actually is. This inquiry is notoriously misleading, as we should never treat it as a stagnant puzzle awaiting a straightforward solution. It is highly improbable that a solitary, sudden revelation will instantaneously infuse your entire journey with profound significance. You can, nevertheless, align your actions and ambitions in a manner that cultivates a deeper sense of direction. Unearthing your purpose is an ever-evolving journey that continuously molds your character, deeply plunging you into the fabric of reality, or simultaneously allowing that reality to permeate your being. Despite how frequently people casually reference a meaningful life, the phrase completely lacks a universally agreed-upon explanation. We can effectively pivot the inquiry by exploring the specific circumstances required for you to genuinely feel your existence holds weight. Whenever someone declares a desire for purpose, they are essentially devoting themselves to a preconceived notion of what that value looks like. This personal conceptualization equips them with a structural lens or a primary objective through which they evaluate their daily actions, driving their determination to realize this vision. Achieving this harmony manifests as a profound sensation of internal unity, interconnectedness, and importance. Consequently, a fulfilling existence is often characterized by what psychologists term positive life regard, which denotes a person's conviction that they are successfully executing a master plan that grants their journey a deeply cherished coherence. I will now guide you through several distinct methodologies for cultivating this positive life regard. The initial perspective is the philosophical paradigm, which dictates that such fulfillment blossoms exclusively when you commit to and realize the universe's inherent purpose. This foundational significance might be drawn from a divine creator in religious frameworks, from the mere state of existence in existential theories, from human nature itself within humanistic ideals, or through self-transcendent models that look at the broader tapestry of existence. Every single one of these ideological frameworks operates on the rigid assumption that there exists merely one singular objective truth to our existence. However, the absolute certainty of a singular truth is highly debatable, paving the way for the possibility of multiple valid purposes. This brings us to the second framework, known as the relativistic model, which argues that dedicating yourself to any coherent belief system can effectively establish the foundation necessary for profound personal fulfillment. Consequently, this perspective pivots the focus away from the specific details of your worldview, choosing instead to highlight the intensity and sincerity of your devotion to those principles. While the philosophical viewpoints insist that the actual substance of your convictions dictates your sense of purpose, the relativistic approach maintains that the sheer psychological act of believing is the true catalyst for a meaningful existence. Even though the majority of modern thinkers would likely reject the notion of a monolithic purpose if pressed, they continually attempt to unravel the mystery by constructing singular, unified theories to explain human motivation. Because of this inherent contradiction, the relativistic viewpoint possesses distinct advantages over its philosophical counterpart. The vast array of ideologies that have successfully provided humanity with purpose, ranging from Taoism and Christianity to existentialism, simply cannot be distilled into a single, universal formula. This relativistic approach champions profound tolerance for all spiritual and intellectual paths, gracefully encompassing every philosophical model, while simultaneously discouraging pointless academic debates about which doctrine reigns supreme. Ultimately, placing the profound responsibility of discovering a personal truth squarely on your shoulders. Finally, the third avenue for cultivating a deep sense of purpose is situated within the psychological approach. The vast majority of modern psychological paradigms interpret personal maturation as a direct result of overcoming innate developmental hurdles and interacting dynamically with your social surroundings. A prime illustration of this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which posits that foundational requirements must be entirely fulfilled before you can embrace higher-order growth ambitions. Only by systematically satisfying these prerequisites can you unlock profound life validation and extraordinary peak experiences, ultimately culminating in the ultimate state of self-actualization. Perceiving your own inherent worth, often defined as self-esteem, serves as a crucial, deeply personal foundation for cultivating a favorable outlook on existence. This internal conviction is intricately tied to your self-image, encompassing physical appearance, social functions, and distinct character traits, as well as the ongoing journey toward your aspirational identity. Together, these elements forge your comprehensive self-concept, representing the profound understanding of your true nature. While our earliest years are dominated by a focus on self-image shaped through familial bonds, the transition into adolescence shifts our awareness toward establishing genuine self-esteem. Consequently, the pursuit of profound purpose typically emerges later in our psychological evolution, often playfully stereotyped as a university student's obsession, or highlighted as a defining crisis of middle and advanced age. Before you can truly embrace a positive life regard, you must first successfully navigate the complexities of self-concept and secure a stable sense of self-worth. Although robust self-esteem is an essential building block, it alone cannot guarantee a fulfilling perspective on existence. Instead of being absorbed directly from societal expectations, a genuinely affirmative outlook is deeply interwoven with your unique, highly personal assessment of your own aspirations. As a result, feelings of self-worth are closely tied to interpersonal dynamics, including social ease, romantic partnerships, and intimate connections, whereas a positive life regard aligns more closely with milestone-driven achievements like professional satisfaction and occupational success. Another pathway to discovering purpose involves the transactional model, which frames you as an individual striving to satisfy specific desires and ambitions through expected societal roles. Ultimately, cultivating a meaningful existence in this context depends heavily on the harmonious alignment between your personal values or needs and the broader cultural frameworks, subcultures, or social movements you inhabit. Finally, the phenomenological perspective offers another lens by examining the fundamental nature and architecture of human consciousness. While earlier frameworks identify what shapes our ambitions and drives our advancement, this particular model describes the internal mechanisms we use to judge that very progress. You evaluate your affirmative outlook by continuously measuring your current standing against both your ultimate aspirations and your previous achievements, calculating the momentum of your journey. Through this subjective lens of continuous comparison, the concept of a single, universally correct or absolute meaning to existence completely dissolves. Synthesizing these concepts reveals that a fulfilling outlook draws from multiple distinct paradigms, such as the relativistic emphasis on the act of believing itself rather than rigid dogmas, which encourages the exploration of diverse philosophies. Similarly, psychological theories highlight self-worth as a mandatory foundation. The transactional framework demands synergy between personal and societal objectives, and the phenomenological view provides the analytical structure to gauge your forward momentum. To assist you in navigating toward a deeply resonant existence, you might evaluate your current state by rating the following reflections derived from the Life Regard Index on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 represents the lowest agreement and 5 indicates the highest. Consider whether you harbor specific ambitions that would bring immense personal gratification upon their realization, or if you possess a guiding philosophy that infuses your daily routines with profound weight. Conversely, you might find yourself entirely uncertain about your desired trajectory, feeling devoid of any compelling internal drive or overarching reason for being. Reflect on whether you experience a sense of absolute vitality and hold a strong conviction that you will conquer your objectives, or if you predominantly waste your hours on trivial pursuits, ultimately finding little genuine worth in your daily activities. Exploring this struggle further in the book Finding Meaning in an Imperfect World, Ido Landau discovered that an inability to find purpose often stems from a crippling sense of perfectionism. Individuals frequently make the mistake of equating a worthwhile existence exclusively with monumental triumphs and legendary historical figures, using these towering icons to construct an intimidating ideal self meant to guide their actual development. Unfortunately, when you doubt the existence of your ideal self or view it as utterly unattainable, your current reality becomes a source of self-hatred, trapping you in a swamp of negativity and feelings of sheer worthlessness. This emotional paralysis transforms even the smallest steps forward into an absurdly insurmountable hurdle, perfectly illustrated by a struggling author who wallows in despair because their prose fails to rival the genius of Shakespeare. To combat these impossibly elevated standards, Landau strongly advocates for a philosophy of non-perfectionism, arguing that a rich existence simply requires accumulating an adequate number of reasonably valuable elements. Ultimately, discovering purpose revolves entirely around recognizing and cultivating genuine worth in your everyday reality. It is crucial to acknowledge, however, the existence of negative values, actions like inflicting suffering, engaging in deceit, or violating societal norms. Although a person might mistakenly derive a twisted sense of significance from such toxic behaviors, these destructive paths inevitably forge a hollow, meaningless reality, rather than a fulfilling one. While avenues to fulfillment are boundless, ranging from the pursuit of joy and deep interpersonal connections to dedicated labor, there is often a stark disconnect between what brings us immediate pleasure and what holds enduring significance. You might revel in endless festivities, chase relentless entertainment, or relentlessly pursue financial wealth to secure temporary bursts of happiness. Yet, as you become acclimated to this superficial rhythm, the repetitive nature of such indulgences inevitably breeds profound boredom and an inescapable sense of inner void. Ultimately, many pursuits we mistake for purposeful endeavors fail to provide the substantive nourishment necessary for true personal growth, offering instead only fleeting, ephemeral satisfaction. You often witness affluent and celebrated individuals taking their own lives, despite having secured absolute financial stability and immense societal acclaim. What you must realize is that these individuals still harbor profound psychological and developmental cravings, such as the pursuit of genuine affection and true self-realization. When you find yourself deprived of these essential elements, a crushing existential dread can easily take hold, since these factors are indispensable for your continuous evolution as a human being. In his work, A Confession, Leo Tolstoy detailed his agonizing encounter with a midlife existential crisis, noting that his immense literary success failed to provide him with adequate personal worth. He famously questioned how you can possibly ascertain the purpose of your existence if divinity is absent and mortality is an inescapable certainty. As you shift your focus toward the elements that infuse your existence with authentic purpose, your very essence is fundamentally challenged, ultimately leading to a much deeper level of profundity. Naturally, embracing this transformation demands considerable sacrifice and invariably brings about a certain degree of agony. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche asserted that tremendous suffering serves as the ultimate emancipator of the human spirit, suggesting that while such agony might not necessarily improve you, it undeniably deepens your character. He further contended that achieving human greatness, which hinges on your capacity to conquer inherent worldly tribulations, infuses your journey with purpose and remains vastly superior to the simple pursuit of happiness. You can uncover substantial significance through diverse avenues, such as your career, creative endeavors, personal achievements, profound relationships, and acts of boundless generosity. The broader your spectrum of meaningful pursuits, the more resilient you become. Conversely, failing to secure this sense of purpose places you at severe risk of succumbing to existential nihilism. This destructive ideology convinces you that your actions carry absolutely zero worth, that your presence is utterly inconsequential, and that no elevated objective exists for you to pursue. Consequently, when you declare that existence holds no significance, you are actually articulating a desperate internal agony stemming from a total void of profound purpose. A far more accurate articulation of this state would be an admission that you are fiercely battling to locate significance, or desperately seeking a fresh direction after losing a previously held motivation. You might also crash into a state of perceived pointlessness during a severe existential crisis, a time when you begin scrutinizing your past achievements against the chilling backdrop of your inevitable mortality. This harrowing reflection sometimes forces you to question whether any of your earthly endeavors truly matter, especially when you observe humanity's trivial stature against the vast, unfathomable expanse of the universe. While matters undeniably hold tremendous weight for you on a terrestrial scale, assuming that humanity occupies the absolute center of the cosmos is a fundamentally flawed and deeply anthropocentric delusion. Nevertheless, You maintain the extraordinary capacity to forge a connection with a superior framework through self-transcendence, thereby granting your existence a genuine cosmic significance. Furthermore, you might occasionally feel that living is futile, because our species perpetually faces the looming specter of random celestial catastrophes, catastrophic climate shifts, or severe technological perils that could completely obliterate human history and culture. However, if you endlessly fixate on these countless apocalyptic scenarios, you will inevitably drive yourself into a state of sheer madness and adopt an excessively bleak perspective on reality. To combat this paralyzing dread, the ancient Stoics would counsel you to pause your racing mind and concentrate entirely on the variables that fall strictly within your domain of control. Instead of stubbornly colliding with immovable obstacles, you should cultivate a genuine acceptance of events exactly as they unfold, a concept known as amor fati, which empowers your life to progress smoothly. Echoing this sentiment, Friedrich Nietzsche expressed a profound desire to abandon all accusations and eventually transform into someone who fiercely affirms reality, a genuine yes-sayer. Therefore, rather than exhausting your energy speculating on uncontrollable and unpredictable futures, you must fiercely dedicate yourself to maximizing the present value of your earthly journey. Providing a contrasting philosophical lens, Martin Heidegger proposed that you are inevitably thrust into a specific era, culture, and familial structure, completely embedded in a world that is inherently saturated with significance. He maintained that you are perpetually engaging with the environment around you, existing fundamentally as Dasein, or being there, which means your everyday interactions continuously generate the meaningful background of your reality. This vital necessity for purpose is perhaps best exemplified by Viktor Frankl, who authored the seminal work Man's Search for Meaning in 1946, following his harrowing survival through 3 years of imprisonment within brutal concentration camps. The tremendous resonance of his publication highlighted what he accurately diagnosed as the widespread psychological affliction of the modern era, characterizing it as an agonizing, unspoken yearning for direction. He observed firsthand that those captives who firmly anchored themselves to a future objective, whether it was reuniting with cherished relatives or aiding their fellow prisoners, demonstrated a remarkably higher probability of survival. Even when plunged into the most unimaginable depths of physical and psychological torment, these individuals managed to safeguard a crucial fragment of their spiritual autonomy. The author observes that life's significance fluctuates continuously between individuals and across every passing moment. Consequently, seeking a universal definition is futile. What truly holds importance is the unique purpose you discover at any specific instant. Asking for a broad, all-encompassing answer is much like demanding a grandmaster to identify the universally perfect chess maneuver. This concept forms the bedrock of Logotherapy, a therapeutic school established by Frankl, which posits that humanity's primary drive is the pursuit of purpose. To illustrate the core principles of this psychological approach, consider an encounter the founder had with an aging physician battling profound grief following the death of his spouse. By guiding the widower to realize that outliving his beloved partner intentionally shielded her from the very heartbreak he was currently enduring, the therapist profoundly shifted his perspective. Once agony is imbued with genuine significance, such as the noble act of sacrifice, it fundamentally loses its purely tormenting nature. Maintaining psychological well-being requires you to continuously engage in the arduous pursuit of valuable objectives. When individuals succumb to a pervasive sense of emptiness, they plunge into a state defined as an existential vacuum. This profound crisis is frequently triggered by encountering the tragic triad, which consists of remorse, agony, and mortality. Furthermore, the psychiatrist asserted that crossing paths with these 3 harrowing elements is an unavoidable phase of every human journey. During his era, the medical establishment often mischaracterized this philosophical anguish as a clinical pathology, prompting physicians to stifle their patients' profound disillusionment beneath heavy doses of sedatives. Yet he vehemently argued that questioning your reason for existing constitutes a spiritual turmoil rather than a genuine psychiatric disorder. While pharmaceuticals offer little solace to someone enduring a genuinely bleak and purposeless reality, those who inexplicably suffer despite seemingly ideal circumstances might actually find medical interventions highly advantageous. Unlike beasts driven purely by biological imperatives, humans possess the remarkable capacity to suppress primal urges, such as starvation, in the name of higher ideals like societal transformation. Furthermore, contemporary society lacks the rigid cultural customs and ubiquitous moral codes that once dictated individual destinies in previous centuries. Consequently, a vast number of individuals find themselves adrift, ultimately surrendering to the mindless imitation of the masses or blindly submitting to the oppressive dictates of authoritarian leaders. The philosopher outlines 3 primary avenues for discovering purpose: producing significant work, immersing yourself in profound cultural or interpersonal experiences, and choosing a courageous stance when faced with inescapable adversity. The highest form of interpersonal connection is love, which transcends mere physical intimacy to embrace the singular essence of another soul. Ultimately, instead of interrogating the universe about your destiny, you must realize that existence itself is posing that very question directly to you. Accountability forms the absolute core of our conscious reality, urging you to navigate the present as if you are experiencing a second iteration of your earthly journey, desperately striving to correct the devastating mistakes made during your initial attempt. I trust that this exploration of meaning has offered you valuable insights and moments of deep reflection. May you carry these philosophical concepts forward to illuminate your own personal path toward fulfillment.